Tinesa by Andrew Hawnt. The girl in grey and red leather armour was shoved through the thick doors, stumbling as they parted and unable to right herself with her hands tied behind her back. She fell to her knees, knocking dust into her own face. It stung her eyes, and it took a few moments of blinking tears away to clear her vision. The two huge men that had dragged her here grabbed under her arms and lifted her, pulling her further into the middle of the rough establishment. Mugs of beer were put back on tables. Wary eyes took in the sight of the girl they'd been waiting for. Many fingers secretly went towards the handles of concealed blades. Too many stories had been told about the girl, stories of blood and vengeance. The two thugs that had dumped her in the small hall of the wary hermit went back to the doors, locked them tightly and guarded them from the inside. Regulars dotted around the pub moved from battered chairs and locked shutters into place over windows. There'd be no way out of this one. Gavik placed a mug he had been filling for a customer on his bar and stepped out from behind it, stuffing thick hands in the pockets of his stained apron as he regarded her. "Hello, Princess Tinesa," he said with a grin made of blackened teeth and festering gums. "You're a long way from Faria, aren't you?" The girl held his gaze. "Gavik Leatherwing, you are hereby sentenced to death for the crime of conspiring to murder your king and queen." Gavik laughed heartily, and mugs of beer were raised high in celebration and laughter for a moment. "Yeah, and now that tasty morsel of truth will never be heard outside the stinking rotten pub. How's that feel for you, eh?" Tinesa looked round at the drunken throng that filled the place to capacity. Filthy, cackling lunatics laughed with disdain, foam from their beer slopping from their chins. Strangers hung at the edges of the place, faces cloaked by the dark of hoods, but she could feel their gaze burning into her. "Gavik Leatherwing," Tinesa said again, forcing any fear out of her voice, "you are sentenced to death for conspiring to murder your king and queen." Gavik reached behind the bar and pulled out a previously concealed cleaver, oversized, rusted and chipped, but still completely capable of dismembering her. "Come on then, right here and now, in front of all these good people who aren't at all a bunch of psychopaths, murderers and rogues. Sums you up, lads?" A huge cheer rose up, followed by the sound of beer mugs being drained and slammed back onto the rough tables. "Cut her free in armour," Gavik said, stretching his shoulders and warming up with some swipes at nothing. The thugs cut her hands free and handed her the ornately inscribed sword that had been at her side since she was a child. Now a young woman, its heft gave Tinesa no trouble at all. "I hope you know what you're getting yourself into," she said darkly. "I'm no meek child." Gavik stomped closer. "No, you're a pathetic slip of a girl who thinks that her status makes her a soldier. We was just doing a job. It was played bloody well too. Then you and your guardsmen came and spoiled all the fun. Well, they ain't here now. You are. I had my men take you in secret. But people will know soon enough. My customers here are gonna watch me take your head off your shoulders. Let's see how your parents like that, hey?" Tinesa breathed deep and adopted a readied stance. "Look at her," Gavik laughed. "All rage and no finesse. You gotta live it, girl. You gotta breathe it before you can fight well." He hit Tinesa across the jaw with the handle of his weapon. She looked back and spat blood in his face. Just a small lip wound, but enough to be directed at Gavik. She returned the blow, catching him off guard and cracking his nose. The brute of a man didn't flinch as blood erupted over his mouth and down his apron. Gavik lunged at her, but she moved to the side and used his weight against him, kicking at his passing shin and toppling the huge man to the ground. Gasps and entertained cheers rose up around them as he pushed himself back up on arms thick with muscle. He brought his blade round and swiped, eager to split the girl's head in half. Tinesa blocked it with her royal blade, superior metals withstanding the blow, while Gavik's rusted monstrosity snapped in half, the top end clattering to the ground beside her. Gavik grunted, tossed the hilt of his broken cleaver aside, and grabbed at the girl's throat before she could bring the blade back around to attack. He squeezed. She dropped her weapon to fight off his hands, to no avail. "You may have royal blood, but you're no queen," Gavik spat, spraying her with gobbets of blood. You're a spoilt brat who needs to be taught a lesson. You see these people? These are my people. This is my kingdom. Most of these lot would follow me into oblivion itself." "And the others?" Tinesa gasped. "Eh?" Gavik grunted. Tinesa kicked out, catching Gavik between the legs. He fell to his knees, releasing his grasp on her so he could grab his beaten crotch. "Kill the little witch!" Gavik barked at his customers. Tinesa could see the faces of wanted men and women beneath the hoods of those that surrounded her. Each of them was revealing a knife, a sword, a club, an axe. Each of them would leave their mark on her. If she grabbed for her sword, they would be on her. She stood unarmed. "A princess, yes!" she snarled at the bulky mass of Gavik as he stood and pulled a jagged dagger from his belt. "But I'm other things too. A student, an artist, a thinker, and a budding tactician." Tinesa drew herself to a full height. Such as it was. "To arms!" she cried. "By order of Tinesa!" came the chorus of voices from the edges of the pub. Hoods were flung back, cloaks were cast aside, gleaming armor and even more gleaming swords were revealed from beneath the stink of filthy cloth. The thugs turned in horror, quickly realizing they were outnumbered. "Strangers," Gavik sneered through gritted teeth. "The Order themselves." "Allowing myself to be captured so I could find your lair would have been stupid. Allowing myself to be captured when I had already found your lair? Less stupid." Tinesa knelt and retrieved her sword. "Guards, if any of these men move, take off their heads. They must watch and understand that this is the last day their crimes will be feared in this kingdom." "Aye," came multiple answers. Tinesa muttered a blessing to her sword's blade, then looked to Gavik with cold eyes. "For my mother and father, they could not come personally due to the wounds you inflicted, but I could. Know this, Gavik Leatherwing. Know you were bested by a child." She ran him through at the stomach, then jerked her blade upwards until it emerged through his jaw. His eyes widened manically as thick fingers fought to contain the raging spill of human offal that cascaded from the wound. Tinesa went to one knee, blessing her sword again. She held Gavik's gaze as he fell, and would hold it until all life faded. The last sound he heard was the weapons of his army falling to the ground.